I shouldn't be upset about my life when there are starving children in Rhodesia. The counseling center received a call from a young man in his late 20s named Matt, who requested a counseling appointment with a therapist to discuss his general frustration and yet apathy about his job as a financial planner and his upcoming marriage to his long-term girlfriend. After settling in with his therapist, he began to tell his story and why he scheduled the appointment. It appeared that Matt was a pretty solid performer in life who worked hard and was fairly disciplined personally. People generally liked him and respected him overall. And even Matt had trouble pointing the finger at what was wrong. He described himself as having worked hard in college and in postgraduate school to get a license as a certified financial planner. He had a successful position in an investment company and successfully bought a condo in an exclusive side of the city. Matt described having a seemingly good relationship with a very attractive young woman who would have been considered a pretty good catch for even someone in his position, financially and professionally, and his family was generally functional and supportive as well. What did start to stand out to the therapist was Matt's way of diminishing any negative experiences or any problems in his work relationships, with his fiancée, or with his siblings by comparing those problems to those of others and declaring them not worthy of time and attention or not even worthy of fully experiencing. The therapist noted that a lot of what he was complaining about personally was a level of detachment from his own experiences. The therapist also noted that his fiancée's main complaint with him, and the one that was causing the most tension between them, was that he wasn't either fully present emotionally with her, nor was he particularly committed to a normal level of problem solving when emotional issues come up. When the therapist started reflecting this back to Matt in these sessions, she noted that one of his go-to statements was what his inner voice said to him, which was, "How can I get upset about a problem so small when there are starving children in Rhodesia?" He admitted doing this quite a bit, even in instances where it would appear he had a rightful reason to be unhappy or angry with something that disrupted his life and was a major problem or setback as well. Well, there is no argument that there are starving children in Rhodesia, and no argument that this is a problem. Nobody likes starving children anywhere, and while none of us has a great plan to end world hunger, the knowledge that people are struggling and suffering somewhere should have some cognitive and emotional effect on us on a deep spiritual and introspective level. I have absolutely no problem with being affected by this knowledge and encourage you to be affected by it. The question is whether Matt has let this knowledge affect him in the right way or not, and whether this knowledge is working to make his daily life better or make his daily life worse. So let's look at his statement at face value and discuss first exactly how we should be affected by knowing that there are people in some other distant places that have life much, much harder than we could ever imagine. I believe that developing perspective is an essential part of learning to really test our lives experiences. We have talked in other chapters about the necessity of looking at others who have handled situations that are similar to the ones that we face in order to get a baseline of what kind of normalcy to feel or to achieve. Our entire scholastic world is based on a grading system that hinges on an average grade of a C as a borderline that separates good performance to one degree or another from bad performance of one degree or another. Someone, somewhere, I'm sure, has written a wonderful paper or wonderful book explaining how we developed a grading system for schools and why it is either good or bad. But regardless of whether it works well on an existential level or not, there is no doubt that it exists and we live with it. This grading system is a central part of us trying to figure out what is normal to achieve. Combined with what our parents hopefully taught us about what is normal to feel should give us a good start on developing an appropriate perspective in our daily lives. This sense of perspective, once installed in us, should serve to teach us not only goals to shoot for, but also teach us how to begin to react to stress and loss and learn how to appreciate the blessings and things that we do have. As a parent myself, I spend more than a fair amount of energy trying to instill the inner perspectives in my children that would moderate their desire to consume the things that they want and need. I remember an instance a few years ago when I used the exact phrase, "There are children in Brazil eating out of garbage dumps," to address my daughter's frustration when she did not get exactly what she ordered going through a fast food drive-thru. I was very firm in saying that if she did not stop complaining about accidentally getting pickles on her chicken sandwich, that I was going to take the sandwich away from her and she could just make herself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich when we got back home, because pickles did not ruin the sandwich. I believe I was giving her an appropriate sense of perspective, that she was overreacting to a slight inconvenience or disruption, and that I, as her parent, was telling her that it was not worthy of an emotional reaction she gave it. I was fine to use the starving children in Rhodesia technique as a barometer to teach her not to go off the deep end over some pickles on a sandwich that she could easily take off, and that I did not believe ruined the sandwich, nor should keep her from enjoying the fact that she got free, hot food that someone else prepared for her, convenience and consumption. Now, if you have noticed that my use of the phrase "with my own child," does not seem all that different on the surface from how Matt has used it, then I'd say you're paying pretty good attention to what's going on here. I have no problem at all with someone using this sort of global perspective of suffering to keep themselves from overreacting and falling into either despair or generating an angry outburst over something that really is not that important in the big scheme of life. Exactly no problem at all. And a lot of what I do as a cognitive behavioral therapist is reframing distorted thoughts and resulting the exaggerating feelings back into appropriate levels. There is a big difference between the motive and how my imaginary client in the vignette has applied this statement and what I think the correct motive is that you should have if you were applying this statement to your life. It appears that Matt used this statement, "I shouldn't get upset because there are starving children in Rhodesia," as a way of avoiding his rightful feelings and concerns about his life in the moment. He also avoided doing anything about the issues that he was upset about. Instead, it appeared that he tried to throw a giant fire blanket over anything and everything that could be an issue. This included issues in his relationship with his fiancée, his job as a financial planner, and everything else in his life, from where he was going to lunch that day to what movie he should go to at the Metroplex Theater on Saturday. Granted, from the vignette, it appeared that most of what he put the damper on were his negative feelings, and that he was afraid to let them come to the surface. This would be something I could understand if he was a guy who was trying to teach himself not to be angry over little things and subsequently needed to be fire blanketing due to a volatile and overactive temper. But this does not seem to be the case, nor was it. What he was really doing was throwing this blanket over any meaningful emotional connection to his daily life and diminishing himself in a sort of passive and depressive way. It appeared that he has learned to discount anything negative that might happen to him with some version of, well, someone somewhere probably has it worse than me, so I don't have the right to register any kind of negative reaction to what just happened. I regularly work backwards with people who display a lack of appropriate self-esteem and self-worth to see just how far the elevator goes down that shaft, as I need to know how much of a foundation has actually been built in order to start working with and form. My belief is that the very bottom of the self, the ground floor in a manner of speaking, is our foundational set of likes and dislikes, the things we want within our life to experience. Things like having a favorite color, what TV programs and movies we like, what hobbies we take up, and how we spend our time are basic building blocks of our individuality. Wanting to experience things we like without life's disruptions is a natural extension of these. When someone does not have the basic likes and dislikes, I have found they question their right to exist altogether, or see themselves as existing only so others can have them and enjoy what they can produce for others. Frequently, I find that I need to tell my clients, whose foundation is very underdeveloped, that your experiences are important and your feelings matter. And I am met with an outpouring of tears because this may be the first time that anyone has ever told them this in their lives. I believe you should have a basic desire to have these positive experiences, and you should have an impulse of frustration and maybe even anger when your life is disrupted from having and enjoying them. Of course, this impulse has to be reality tested and managed, but it needs to be there. When clients tell me that they are saying this to themselves in their daily lives more often than not, what they are really saying to themselves is that their experiences do not matter and they should not engage in the process of improving their lives because somebody else has it much worse. It is not using Rhodesian children as a way of managing these basic impulses for enjoying our lives through maintaining a grateful and appropriate perspective that is the problem. It is when you use this as a justification to either minimize all of your experiences as not worthy of feeling or not worthy of your attention and time to fix or improve that is the problem. Starving children in Rhodesia may be a good metaphor to cause you to be more appreciative of the fact that you have a full refrigerator, or that you live in a climate-controlled and secured house, or that you have reliable transportation and don't have to struggle for your daily existence. No problem with that at all. Starving children in Rhodesia should have nothing to do with your general frustrations about problems in life or with uncomfortable situations at work or home regarding relationship issues that need to be improved so they feel better and the relationship can be healthy and comfortable. Matt was not appropriately committed to his own experiences and feeling in such a way that he ended up disconnected from his own likes and dislikes and his own comforts and success. He was not assertive about seeking out meaningful encounters either individually or with his fiancée, and allowed life to run its course without working to make them happen or keep them from being disrupted. When other people become frustrated or angry, they make an effort to solve the problems that are limiting the good things that life has to bring. Matt would just rationalize his own passivity and disparages either what is important or should be important to himself by invoking the specter of starving children somewhere as justification. This is minimizing your right to have and achieve the feel-good things in life, while avoiding the responsibility to do something about it when things get in the way. I want you to maintain appropriate gratefulness and not to be a reckless and greedy consumer, but I also want you to protect your right to a good life with enjoyable and memorable moments and relationships as well. Matt was fairly receptive after a short period of getting comfortable with his therapist and examining how his habit of diminishing his normal daily relationship experiences had caused him to become flat emotionally and not fully invested in the life he had worked so hard to create. The therapist suggests that perhaps Matt was subconsciously feeling guilty about his overall success in life and achieving a high-paying job at a young age and having a relationship to a very beautiful and socially skilled woman that others would be envious of, and was discrediting his own accomplishments by saying, "But there are starving children in Rhodesia," whenever he was confronted with the need to make an already good life better. Matt accepted that his overall feeling of discomfort and his general malaise came from this exaggerated attempt at gaining perspective and maintaining some misbegotten sense of humility and was willing to look at how he minimized his right to a good life overall and a gratifying relationship with his fiancée. Working steadily with his therapist, he began to put more of his energy into his own experience of life, and he enjoyed the feelings that went well, even better, and allowed himself to feel frustration and upset when things did not go well. This caused his relationship with his fiancée to straighten itself out as he became more invested and attached to her. This also corrected some ongoing problems at work, as he was now invested enough to work on making these situations better. After 6 months of weekly sessions, Matt had shifted his concern about starving children in Rhodesia away from diminishing his enjoyment and investment in his blessed daily life and into appreciating what he had and what he could make it even more. Matt left therapy with an improved life and successfully married his fiancée.